Hi guys, I'm Niv Ashkenazi and this is Eye for Technique. Today we're going to look at 5 different violin techniques with my special slow motion camera. We're going to take a look at left-hand pits, spiccato, double stops, detaché, and slurs. I always think it's best to see technique in context of pieces, so I've picked a few musical excerpts which you'll hear me play first, and then we'll dig into the slow motion of each technique. Some of you might notice that the musical excerpts are quite short, kind of around 10 seconds long, but that is because with the slow motion camera, we're actually looking at things 33 times slower. We're looking at it at 1,000 FPS, frames per second. So a 10-second audio clip actually becomes a 5.5-minute video. For those of you wanting to jump ahead, each technique is going to be timestamped, so let's get started. We're going to start with spiccato. I actually have an odd fascination with bounce techniques of any kind. I really love the variety that you can get with bounce techniques, and I think it looks really good in slow motion because it's fast, there's a lot of motion, and you see really cool and interesting things. Let's start by seeing spiccato up close. We can actually see that the bow looks like it's bouncing really, really high up off the string, but we got to remember that we are pretty zoomed in, so that is much closer to the string than it looks. If you look carefully, you can see the bow hairs rippling, and I never knew that the bow hair ripples like that until I saw this in slow motion. I think it's really cool to see. We can also see exactly when the sound starts and stops based off of the vibration of the string. Now we get to see spiccato from a much wider angle, and if we look at the stick and the bow hairs on the string, it really doesn't look like the bow is bouncing off the string very far at all. And now if we get a closer look, we're going to be able to see the hair ripple just like we did in the other one. And here it goes again. Now what I like about this clip is that we can really see the motions in the fingers and the wrist, because our wrist is what powers our spiccato, but even so, we see very little motion between the wrist and the fingers. But if we look now at the stick right near the strings, we can see the stick going up and down a lot. And that's because that's where a lot of the energy is coming from. The wrist is powering the spiccato, but the bow is doing most of the work for us. Before we continue to the next part, please hit the like button. This is a brand new channel and it will really help. Next, we're moving on to left-hand pizzicato, and I really love making my own arrangements, both for performance and for exercises. And this is actually from my own arrangement of the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy from the Nutcracker. I think left-hand pits is one of the coolest techniques on the violin. I love how it looks, and it's really satisfying to play. So here we can actually see exactly how much energy it takes to pluck the string. And as we see with the pinky, look at how much we're pulling the string just to get it to pluck. It really has to be pulled very far, or the pluck won't be loud enough. Here we go again. Here's a different angle for the left-hand pits, and if you look carefully at the fingertips, you can actually see the indent from the string in the calluses. Here is the same angle with the last few notes from that musical excerpt. You can see the recoil in the hand itself for the amount of strength that it takes to actually pluck. So much energy is going through that pinky. Here we have left-hand pits from one last angle, and we can see that when I pluck the A string, my E string also gets plucked a little bit. But we don't actually hear that when we listen to the clip in normal speed. So that little extra vibration does not affect the audience experience, even though we can actually see it happening in slow motion. Next, we're going to look at some double stops. A lot of solo violin arrangements have a lot of double stops and chords because it's an easy way for the composer to show the harmony as well as the melody. This is another one of my arrangements, Yesterday by the Beatles. I think we got some of the best footage actually for the double stops. We got some really interesting angles. Here in this first part, we can actually see both the D string and the A string vibrating at the same time, which tells us that both are being played. And after the bow change, we can see it switch to the A and the E string. Here is another angle of that same shot where we can actually see the A and the E string vibrate. The strings are actually a little hard to focus on, but we can see them kind of shimmering in and out. Here is a more experimental angle that we got, where you can actually see the bend of the bow hair from the string because of the pressure. If you look closely at the D string, you will see that underneath the bow hairs you can actually see the string vibrating, which I think is really cool. There's a shadow there that is still vibrating. And here we can actually see the D and the A string vibrating from two different angles. Detaché is a very basic technique. We use it in almost every single piece that we play, but it's great that with slow motion technology, we can actually find some really interesting things to see in it. So for the détaché, we're going to start with a wide angle, and here we see the bow strokes the up and down motion. But what I love to be able to see is the finger motion. There still isn't a ton of it, but we get to see a lot of the subtlety, as well as the wrist motion going up and down and the smoothness of the entire motion together. And here we actually get to see the string change and the level change with the elbow, as well as the continuous open and closing, which is only happening from the elbow. Now, as we zoom in, we actually get to see a lot more details for the fingers themselves. And we can see that each bow stroke is pretty circular. There's a bit of a circle going on with the entire arm, and it's always smooth. Each motion always leads into the next motion. If you look at where the bow meets the string, you can actually see the string not just vibrating, but being pulled to the left and to the right, depending on which bow stroke we're on. Even though slurs are all about having multiple notes within one bow, I think that the part that looks most interesting with the slurs in slow motion is looking at our bow strokes with a fuller bow. Even though slurs are multiple notes played on one bow, I'm not really interested in the left hand right now. I'm more interested in the right hand because we can really see at every given point where the wrist is, how it rises slowly. And here, where we have the bow change, we can really see the exchange with the fingers, the wrist, and we can see the arm opening back up for this down bow. So I think there's a lot more to see with the right hand, actually. So that we don't neglect the left hand, here we actually get to see a bonus technique of vibrato in slow motion in an upper position. If you've made it this far, please hit the like button and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see more from any of these techniques or if there are any other techniques or pieces that you'd like to see in slow motion.